On the 9th of October 1839, the United States Bank of Pennsylvania suspended all gold and silver payments, locking thousands of depositors out of their own accounts. How did Nicholas Biddle manage a quiet, unrecorded transfer of $29 million in hard assets to a private London syndicate during the exact 14 months the bank was supposed to be bankrupt? You are about to see the liquidation ledgers that transferred the ownership of the old world into private hands. The financial textbooks sell the 1840 bank collapses as a simple panic caused by frontier land speculation and cotton debt. They claim President Andrew Jackson bravely killed the central bank to protect the common man by vetoing its federal charter. They want you to believe the resulting depression was just a natural market correction, a necessary pain to purge bad debt from a young, growing republic. You accepted this because it frames the poverty of the 1840s as an unavoidable accident. You read that state banks printed too much paper money, leading to a perfectly logical chain reaction of insolvency. Men panicked, banks failed. The frontier suffered, the government supposedly stood by and let the free market heal itself. But the liquidation dockets from the Philadelphia bankruptcy courts do not show a disorganized panic. They show a highly coordinated asset extraction executed by the exact same men who intentionally crashed the currency. Look at the bankruptcy schedule filed in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania in 1841. When a massive institution fails, the courts appoint a receiver to inventory every single physical asset the bank owns to pay back the creditors. Cross-reference the 1839 commercial property valuations in Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Charleston with the receivership dockets of 1840. The physical tax maps show sprawling granite banking houses, massive iron-vaulted customs buildings, and heavy masonry commercial blocks entirely owned by the central bank. These were not wooden pioneer structures. They were fortresses. Less than a year later, the court-appointed trustees listed those exact properties at a valuation of zero. Nobody audited this. Not once in 180 years. The bankruptcy trustees simply drew a line through the most advanced architecture on the eastern seaboard and declared it worthless. The paper trail exposes the lie. The asset forms on file in the county clerk office show massive depreciation write-offs signed by men who sat on the board of the exact syndicates acquiring the properties. The master liquidation ledger for the Philadelphia Commercial District lists 214 consecutive seized properties, but the deed transfer column for entry 108 is completely blank. That missing entry belonged to the main headquarters building itself, a massive columned temple of solid stone that could not have been built with 19th century horse and pulley technology. The bank directors claimed it was depreciated asset waste. They did not just hide the money, they hid the buildings. They wiped the physical structures off the official county tax rolls so they could be quietly absorbed by private trusts. The men who took possession of that blank entry did not pay for it. They merely transferred the title to an offshore holding company that held the state government hostage. The bankruptcy was a cover story to launder the physical infrastructure of a pre-existing empire. And here is where it gets. I need you to follow this carefully. Intentional. The receiver appointed to manage the bank assets was a syndicate controlled by the Baring brothers of London. The bank owed them money. But instead of taking cash, the London syndicate demanded the physical collateral. They bypassed the public auction entirely. They took the heavy masonry forts, the star-patterned commercial districts, and the underground vault systems. They used the panic to force the state legislatures to surrender the public deeds. Look at the signature at the bottom of page 42 of the assignment deed. The asset transfer was legally notarized at midnight on the 4th of September, locking the public completely out of the recovery process. In a single transaction recorded on the 4th of June, 1840, they absorbed $42 million in hard, old-world real estate in exchange for forgiving a paper debt they themselves had artificially inflated. They pulled the gold out of the system, watched the local banks collapse, and then stepped in to claim the stone and the iron. The institution orchestrating this legal theft was the House of Rothschild, operating through their chief American agent, August Belmont. Belmont arrived in New York directly before the Panic of 1837. He did not come to build, he came to foreclose. He used the 1840 bank runs to weaponize panic. When the local banks collapsed, Belmont and his cartel bought the underlying collateral for pennies. They seized the massive pre-existing port authorities. They took the Pennsylvania canal systems, claiming the stone locks were newly built when the masonry was already centuries old. They swallowed the independent treasuries. Look at the transfer logs for the Port of Baltimore in 1842. Every single stone warehouse along the central pier was legally transferred to a shell corporation registered in London. Every time a local bank failed, a local family lost their farm, but Belmont acquired the heavy infrastructure of the old world. They called it a liquidation. It was an eviction. The bank run was engineered to force the transfer of the most valuable physical assets on the continent out of the hands of the Republic and into the private vaults of a European cartel. They took the existing Tartarian infrastructure, scraped the original insignia off the iron doors, and bolted their own bank logos onto the stone. They did not fund the Industrial Revolution. They stole it from the civilization that was already here. That specific cartel did not dissolve when the economy recovered. They used those stolen assets to establish the central clearinghouses that process your digital paycheck today. This is not dead history. The financial architecture that devoured the 1840 economy is still operating. You are carrying debt right now that traces back to a decision made in a private room in 1840 that was never put to a public vote. The descendants of the Belmont and Baring syndicates still hold the underlying collateral. They control the corporate trusts that underwrite the modern banking apparatus. Look closely at the corporate charter that survived the liquidation. The New York Clearinghouse, the exact institution that processes trillions of your digital transactions today, was built directly on top of the financial monopolies established during that specific bank run. When you pay federal income tax, you are servicing a national debt that was legally structured to perpetually enrich the exact same banking dynasties that stole the old world infrastructure. They erased the original builders. They seized the massive stone banks, locked the doors, and sold you a fiat currency backed by nothing. Your local bank branch operates under a charter designed by men who proved that you can seize an entire nation if you just control the bankruptcy courts. The legal framework of foreclosure they invented in 1840 is the exact same paperwork they use to take your house today. You rely on a banking system designed by men who specialize in engineered collapse. Every time you deposit your paycheck, you give them the leverage they need to fund the next reset. They stripped the continent of its real wealth nearly 2 centuries ago and left you with pieces of paper that lose value every single day. The courts will not save you when the next run happens, because the courts work for the trusts. When the digital ledgers go dark and your bank tells you your account is frozen, who do you think already holds the deed to your collateral? The visuals and storyline reconstruction in this video were assisted by AI, because sometimes the only way to show you what they buried is to rebuild it from scratch. If what we just found about August Belmont and the 1840 bank liquidation changed how you view your own savings account, put it in the comments. I want to know how far this goes for people watching right now. Do you genuinely believe the cash in your local branch is actually there? Or are you just holding a digital receipt for an empty vault? Subscribe if you want to be here when we pull the next thread, because it connects directly to the credit score you use to survive. This does not end here.